Biz Devo, where we explore God's principles for living a high-performance life. Now, my name is Kenneth Ott, and as I always say, these are short little versions that we're going to do right here. I do them once a week. But if you'd like to get full episodes, like we do 50-minute episodes, sometimes I interview some business owners. This is a devotional, weekly devotional for entrepreneurs from entrepreneurs. No, I'm not a pastor. I'm not a Bible scholar. We're just taking principles from the Bible and we're applying it to living a successful life, building a successful business, those kind of things. If you'd like to listen to long episodes, you can go to bizdevo.com or you can search up the Biz Devo, the Grow Time Biz Devo on any podcast network. Okay? So with that out of the way, today we're in Hebrews chapter 10. There's one little thing that I think is a really valuable piece of information if you want to live a successful life, which is what we explore here. So, Hebrews chapter 10, verse 35 and 36. This is Paul talking to a church that's been just like discouraged and beat down. Okay, and so that's the context of this. We get into verse 35. Therefore, do not cast away your confidence, which has great reward. For you have need of endurance, so that after you have done the will of God, you may receive the promise. Okay. So I talk often about receiving the promises of God and actually challenging him to keep his promises, right? First of all, you need to know what the promises for you are. And once you have that, right? And that I've talked about that in other episodes. Go search the Biz Devo up and I've talked about how I've seen for myself how you find your mission in life and how you find the promises of God for you. But once you have those, you have to trust in them. And I'll tell you what, like, that's hard. Like, I've been going through some difficult times with some of the things, and the promises that I feel like I have, the promises that God has given me that have not come to pass yet, I've been tempted to be really discouraged with them and to give up on them. And I've had great friends and people in my life come and encourage me. And also just the stories in the Bible that encouraged me. But in order to get the promise, which is what you want, it's interesting here. So we get a little formula. First of all, it says, don't cast away your confidence. This basically means don't give up. Confidence is an interesting word. When you're just when you're disappointed and discouraged and something's not happening, like for me, my confidence starts to go down. I like to win. And so sometimes I go through periods of time, I'm kind of going through that right now, where there's a lot of losing. And it feels like for someone who likes to win, when you're losing a lot, and it's really your perspective on it. But like when you're losing a lot, when you're like going up to bat, and you're swinging and missing and striking out, or at least that's what it feels like. Maybe you can relate to that. Maybe sometimes that feels like that with you. It feels like when you're losing a lot, you start to get discouraged and your confidence starts to go away. When you look at pro athletes, it's really interesting because they go into slumps. They go into shooting slumps. And it's interesting because nothing's changed physically. It's just their mind. So there's something that happens. There's something, we don't know exactly how confidence plays out, but we do know that confidence is critical for success in anything. When you're not confident in something, and again, the most obvious way of looking at this is with any pro sports or any pro athlete. When they have confidence, they're doing well, they're winning, they're hitting shots. When their confidence goes, that's when they start missing shots. So that's interesting. So clearly confidence is important for success. And so he's telling them, don't throw away your confidence because it's important. Don't give up. Even though like all this bad stuff has happened, don't give up because it's important. He says it has great reward. That great reward is what we just talked about. Like you don't get the success of doing something without being confident in that. Now, confidence is an interesting word. I want to stop here for a second. And this might be like a couple minutes longer than I normally do. I usually try and do like 5 minutes. But this is so important. I've been teaching people this. I learned this a little while ago. Oftentimes we I meet a lot of people that say they don't have confidence, right? A lot of people that say that they don't have confidence in speaking. For a long time, I didn't like to speak in front of people. And I would say I didn't have confidence when speaking in front of people. And that was interesting is this. The word confidence, when you look at the etymology of the word confidence, how it breaks down, it comes from the word confidentia in Latin. And that sounds like confidential, right? Confidentiality. So it actually breaks down, and then it goes a little bit further. The root of the word is the word confidere. And that is interesting. That means with trust. It literally means with, trust, fidere. So confidence literally means trust in yourself. So here's what's interesting. If you don't have confidence, the question, what it actually means is you don't trust in yourself. And one of the ways to destroy trust in yourself very quickly is to say you're going to do something and not do it. To not keep the promises to yourself. That is how you destroy confidence. That's literally how you destroy your confidence. And when that hit me a couple of years ago, a mentor of mine taught me about that. Because I would say I was going to do things, and then frankly, I wouldn't do them. And here's why. We get a little dopamine hit when we say we're going to do something. Oh, I'm going to launch this business. Oh, I'm going to launch this product. I would say those things all the time. Oh, I'm going to do that. I have this idea, and then I would get a little dopamine hit for saying that I was going to do it, and then I wouldn't do it because there's a whole bunch of hard stuff that goes into doing and taking action. And so when we say we're going to get up in the morning, or we say we're going to launch that business or launch that product or do that marketing thing or whatever it is, we don't do it. We say we're going to work out. We don't do it. What we're doing is we're destroying our confidence because we're lying to ourselves. We're teaching our own bodies to not trust in what we say. And that literally is how you destroy your confidence. By not keeping the promises to yourself. So that's a little sidebar, but that's so interesting. Because I meet so many people that are not confident. I myself, when I've not been confident in the past, it's come from when I learned this, when I started keeping the promises to myself and only saying things that I was absolutely going to do, then I started having confidence and more confidence. So that's very interesting. By the way, confidence comes from doing the work, right? So if you have confidence in shooting a basketball, it's because you've shot a lot of basketballs. And so you've taught yourself that you can rely on yourself to hit shots because you've done the work to hit shots. So that's interesting. Okay, so therefore, do not cast away your confidence, which has great reward. That's verse 35. Verse 36. Here's why you need it. For you have need of endurance, so that after you have done the will of God, you may receive the promise. So confidence gives you the ability to push through and do something for a long period of time, which is endurance. And endurance is important because here's the thing, it's funny, when you start something and when you succeed at something, people praise you for it. You start a business. Congratulations, oh, that's so good. When your business sells, congratulations, that's amazing. In the middle, the long middle, no one praises you for that. You just go away. Like when you run a marathon, and I've never run a marathon because I hate running, but when you run a marathon, you start the race, a bunch of people are cheering you on, and then when you get to the finish line or close to the finish line, a bunch of people are cheering you across the finish line. And then there's like 15,000 miles in the middle where no one's even there. And that's where you need endurance. Endurance is not for the beginning. The start can be hard, but really the hardest part about success, as I've learned this in business, especially in business, but this applies to anything in life. Like the hardest part of success is the long middle. And you have to have endurance. And so what Paul says here is you need confidence so that you can actually do the thing successfully. You have to do hard work for a long period of time. You have You have a need of endurance so that after you've done the will of God, you may receive the promise. Clearly, it's interesting because when I don't have the promise that I want, it's often that I often have neglected doing the thing. Now, there are times when I'm doing the thing and now I'm in the difficult middle part of it, and I'm like, why in the world am I not seeing the results that I'm supposed to be seeing? That's endurance. And so only if you have endurance to actually do the hard work, after that, after you've done the hard work, which Paul says is the will of God, after you've been obedient, there are things in my life that I have had to be obedient about, even in the face of not seeing any fruit from it. And I don't even know if I'm going to see fruit from it. Like, you may be experiencing, this is one of those things, by the way. It's funny. Like, the Biz Devo was that. It was obedience. And I've been doing it for about a year and a half, about 90 episodes on our podcast or so. And it's about doing it because it was an obedient act. God had put this thing in my heart to create a devotional from a business owner for business owners, really looking at principles for success from the Bible, like not from a pastoral standpoint, but just from like a normal person standpoint. And to tell people about it and talk about it and like record these and like interview other business owners that actually are faith leaders in the mainstream. Like, that's what God put in my heart and said, go do that. So I'm doing it. And I'm in the hard middle where there's a lot of work and not a lot of results. And there have been times when I've like not been when I've decided to not do it because it was not producing results, and so I skipped it here and there. But like in general, I've been very consistent actually with it. This is the hard middle. It's endurance, but it's obedience. So it's like doing the thing that you were told to do, whatever that is. Another thing that I'm doing, and I'm not like bragging, I'm just telling you for examples, like years ago, God put a couple of books in my heart. Like, these are business books. These are not necessarily like ministry books or anything like that. Like, but God said, like, put some books in my heart, to say, you need to write these books. Okay. And then I, for a long time, didn't do that. And I had really great excuses. I was really busy and serving clients and building business and had 4 kids and had a family and all these other things, like really good excuses. The fact is I didn't obey and I didn't do it. And so now I'm doing it. And I've been doing it for the last several months. Hopefully it'll actually release here in the next month or so. And it's a book about business on e-commerce. It has nothing to do with this aside from there's principles that I employ that you guys hear me talk about in my businesses. And so I'm in the hard middle of like writing a book when there's absolutely no results from that thing. I've seen absolutely no fruit from that. It's the hard middle. And so that's why endurance is important. It says here, it's interesting, for in order to get the promise that God has promised you, you have to do the will of God and endure through it. And after that, then you get the promise. And so, hopefully this is helpful for you today. This little short Devo. If you'd like to get the full version of it, you can go to the Biz Devo or bizdevo.com, bizdevo.com. We have like 90 or so episodes there, and they go a lot longer. But the purpose of this is to kind of just give a short little devotional from a business owner for business owners. Right, and let's read this again, verse 35. Therefore, do not cast away your confidence. Do not give up on your confidence. Confidence is clearly very valuable for success. This is Hebrews 35, which has great reward. And then verse 36. For you have need of endurance. That means the hard middle, right? The start, people are cheering you on. The end, people are cheering you on. The middle of everything I've been involved in, the middle, no one is there, it's hard, and there may not be any fruit from your labor. This is why endurance is so important, because unless you have that endurance, then you cannot receive the promise or the success of the thing. And we see that in absolutely everything. How many pro athletes have you seen Like, we see them winning Super Bowls. But the truth is that they had to endure massive amounts of time in the gym where no one knew what they were doing. No one was praising them. They had no fans. They had no money. I mean, I know people like this. Many of them didn't succeed and don't succeed. But they had to do that in order to get the reward. So the endurance is important. The confidence and the endurance to do the thing. And so, hopefully this is helpful for you today. Hopefully this helps you live a more ambitious, more high-performance life. If you'd like to learn more about the Biz Devo, you can go to bizdevo.com. That's bizdevo.com. We have much longer episodes there. It's a weekly devotional for business owners from business owners. Sometimes I interview business owners in the mainstream that are people of faith that are employing the success principles in their business, and other times it's just devotions from the Bible. If you'd like to learn more about me, Kenneth Ott, you can go to kenott.com. That's KENOTT.com. And you can also search up the Biz Devo on any of the podcast platforms. If this was helpful for you, share it with somebody. It's the only way that this spreads. So thanks, and until next time, never stop growing.